Hey everyone, it's me, everyone's friend, me and Buster Green, and I'm still having a massively busy week where I'm burned out and I have no time to live stream. Anyway, Uzumaki ended last night, and because I did my last video on it, and my last video on it did really good, it ended up being my most popular video of the last 6 months, I might as well talk about how it ended because, it ended and, people have thoughts about that, especially me, and now it's time to take the full series into perspective. And hey, stick around after I'm done because I'll also review Uzumaki the movie. Did you know they made a movie of it? I didn't. It's like so old that I never heard about it. Alright, so this is definitely a sequel to my first video, and you guys should check that out first. If you want an in-depth look at the first 2 episodes and behind-the-scenes drama that led to the night and day difference between the quality of episode 1 and 2, check out that video. Now, after you watch that video, since then, there's been a few more rumors, and the new rumors that have popped up in the week since the first episode are some rumors that the director of the first episode embezzled the show's budget or otherwise somehow wasted the entire budget on that first episode. Because the budget was wasted, the other 3 episodes were left with mere table scraps to complete the show, and I can't confirm or deny this rumor, so I'm just going to move past it. However, there is one new additional piece of the puzzle that I can confirm. We got some new information that popped up that another reason that the show took 5 years to complete and had massive inconsistent quality was the pandemic. The pandemic made things difficult for everyone, especially the animators on the show, because if you don't remember, during the pandemic, everyone stayed inside and all the streaming services invested hard into animation. There was a massive boom in animation in 2020 when the pandemic started, and a majority of the animators who apparently were starting to work on episode 1 apparently quit after episode 1 to jump ship for greener pastures and greener paychecks. And as a result of this, they left behind a skeleton crew of untrained amateurs to finish the show, and that's how we got what we got. So that being the case, I guess it's an ominous threat that if you break up your band, all the King's Horses and all the King's Men will never put your band back together again, and then you're left with a cover band that can't ever copy the notes of the original. So I guess the lesson of Uzumaki is that if you're running an animation crew, take care of your people, keep them close, don't let your people run off and, jump off Niagara Falls in a barrel, otherwise you'll end up with another Uzumaki. But yeah, so everyone collectively barfed and gagged at how bad episode 2 was, so that leaves a big remaining question mark of how were episode 3 and 4. Well, I'm just going to tell you right now with this fun graph that indicates how good all the episodes were. Episode 1 was the best one, beloved by all, and episode 2 was the worst one, hated by all. But episode 3, by all accounts, not too shabby. Much to my surprise, 3 was a lot better than episode 2. And so it seems that what happened is after the disaster of episode 2, possibly they switched crews again. So for episode 3 and 4, it seems that the show almost fully abandoned using CG animation. Remember that episode 1 had this beautiful, amazing, groundbreaking CG animation that completely matched the style of the original manga. But then episode 2 completely dropped the ball on that by having this dog shit amateur level CG animation that looked like it was done by teenagers taking an introduction to Blender class. And then in a refreshing departure from all that madness, episode 3 and 4 has decided that that wasn't going to work. That was impossible to keep up with. And they went back to good old fashioned 2D animation, and that kind of little bit worked. I'm honestly pleased to report that episode 3 is perhaps the scariest episode of the show, if not otherwise the most gruesome. It is up there with some of the worst, most disgusting shit I've ever seen before. Like, it has this maternity ward story where the pregnant moms turn into mutilated cannibals, and that was generally some of the most barf-inducing Japanese horror shit I've ever witnessed it with my eyes since I was in college. In college, I saw this really disgusting Japanese movie that I don't want to explain, I don't want to talk about. But yeah, there was also that one Takeshi Miike movie where everyone mutilates themselves with scissors. And episode 3 kind of brings back the vibes of that when it ends the story of what's-her-name's mom with her own mutilation. Anyway, unfortunately, that brings us to episode 4, the ending of the show. And episode 4 has a majority of the same bad issues as episode 2, but I'd argue it's a little bit better than episode 2, but not by much. Like, the worst things going on in episode 4 are that it just speeds through way too much content way too fast, and that's exactly the same bad vibe that episode 2 had, where too many ridiculous things happened all at once, and it was the scary door from Futurama. Episode 4 also has another amateur as fuck animation moment when what's-his-name falls into a big hole, and the animation is just literally dragged across the screen completely unanimated. No, I said. I could do better than that. Why didn't you hire me on this show? Come on, Uzumaki. And then I got criticized the absolute finale of the ending, where last boy and last girl end up in the spiral ruins. And because the pacing of the show has been so absolutely terrible up to now, I forgot that you were even like romantically a thing in the show. Like, I kind of thought they were both like just like asexual or like not really focused on sex because they were like dying. But it seems like if anything, they're just hooking up at the last minute because they're the last man and woman left alive in the town. But it was random and it was corny. And I kind of hated that they just accepted that they were beat down and embraced their deaths. Honestly, it sounds a lot like what the producers of the show did. So yeah, that's ultimately what Uzumaki ended up being. A completely horrible disaster that embraced its own death. It had bad pacing. It had a half-decent first and third episodes. But yeah, that terrible second and fourth episode makes the show pretty much more than half rotten, with the first episode really just being the gem in like the pile of crap. It sounds like ultimately Adult Swim did get fucked over by the first animation team or otherwise the de-staffing that occurred during the pandemic, but they're also somewhat responsible for leaving this the way it was and not giving this classic series the respect and money it deserved. Like, for fuck's sakes, once you know you have a problem like this, you need to invest in better people or more episodes or just fix the shit you got. Like, I really think in any other circumstance, this show would have been greenlit as a 12-episode standard season anime run, and in 12 episodes, they could have done the entire books perfectly. It would have been brilliant, but in 4 episodes, it's Uzumaki the speedrun, and I can't abide that. Horror is not meant to be speedrun like that. It's not scary if you're just like running through all the moments like at a like breakneck pace. Like, the show is so ridiculous that I can't find it scary. And honestly, the only reason the first and third episodes work is because they have a little less going on in them, so they are able to breathe like the other episodes weren't. Episode 1 and Episode 3 feel a little bit more focused on a single horrific event than the others, and yeah, this show is just a mess. Whoever's running Cartoon Network should have known this was going to be a controversial and disaster of a show, and they should have just ponied up more money, done like a theatrical release or like a DVD release, and invested the right amount of money to make this show a real classic and not some like slop that we're all going to forget about next week. Like, this could have been a hit show that could have had like a years-long legacy. It could have turned a real profit, and now it's just a massive relic of lost potential. And that's a fucking crime because this show just came out like a month ago. Now, I don't feel like I'm done talking yet, and I want to add some like more fat to this video. So I'm going to also check out the original Uzumaki movie and see if that does the story any more or less justice. So stand by, I'm going to go watch it, and then I'll come right back. Oh, damn. That was all? Okay, damn, the Uzumaki movie is a fucking oddity. Okay, so I kind of held off on watching this before because I was low-key worried I was going to ruin my experience with the manga or the anime, and I was concerned that it was going to be very traumatizing, like that one Japanese horror movie I saw in the year 2000 that I don't ever talk about. But I would honestly say that this movie and this anime are weird because they're both night and day adaptations of the manga. And it's honestly kind of crazy that it seems to me like every bad decision the anime made, the movie made the opposite decision, seemingly just like going in the opposite way at every possible moment. Like, this anime and this movie, they are polar opposites, where everything the anime did well, the movie did bad, and everything the anime did bad, the movie did well. So yeah, let's talk about it because I think comparing these is a crazy lesson on how to fuck up a comic book adaptation twice in the same way, but while going in opposite directions. So just starting from the get-go, while the anime was weirdly presented in this true to the manga black and white style that I've never seen attempted in an anime before, the movie is in full color, except not really. It's got one of those gringy 90s Matrix style filters on it where everything's a dull green color. It looks like you're watching the movie on an original Game Boy. I also noticed the film looked artificially aged and damaged, like it was filmed in like the year 2000, but because of this artificial aging, it looks more like it's a film out of the 70s. It's got like an extra filter on it to make the film look more aged and damaged, even though it was like clearly filmed on digital cameras. So you know what? I bet they're going to adapt Uzumaki a third time, and I bet you next time it will be a full color anime. So as I mentioned before, the anime cut out almost all of the suspenseful and build-up moments, and then it also cut out all these character moments to the point that in the last episode, I completely forgot that Sato and Kirie were even like dating when they randomly declared their dying love for each other. Like, I've forgotten that they like even like knew each other like that. So the movie, meanwhile, rectifies this by strongly building up their relationship in like the first like half hour. It much harder tries to like establish these characters and make you like them, which is something the anime failed to do. It even makes them slightly tragic lovers by presenting that Saito kind of knew the spiral curse was coming, and so therefore he urged Kirie to leave town with him so they could elope and get away from it. Although it does this by tacking on this like kind of slow-paced 30-minute long cold opening, showing the town in its original uncursed state because that's cheap to do. I'm a tad torn on it. On the one hand, it's boring as fuck, but I kind of respect it for showing off this mossy ancient Japanese town with like 4,000 years of history that seemingly exists out of time. But I guess I can't condone this opening scene because the movie covers a very little amount of the manga compared to the anime. Also, in this opening montage, they pass by a wanted poster for Junji Ito next to an advertisement for the Uzumaki manga. I'm not sure if this is his on-screen credit or some weird subliminal advertising crap. It also seems like the movie, while not super crunching the plot like the anime did, instead combines certain plot lines just to streamline the story, and I'm okay with that. Like, it felt like Sato and Serie are being majorly combined with the Romeo and Juliet couple from the beach episode, and some of the other major plot lines have been majorly truncated down. Anyway, the movie's pacing is also weird in the opposite way of the anime's. The movie is too slow, the anime was too fast. In the movie, in about 90 minutes, I would say it covers slightly less content than the show did in 2 episodes. But you know, I kind of enjoyed the movie more, so I'm going to give the movie like my seal of approval because it's better than the anime. But then again, it's hard to compare them both because I can't tell if that's really the case, or it's just that the anime was so bad, the anime handled the material like dog shit, that now it's making the movie just look way better by being slightly competent. Like, for example, in the anime, Kirie's family is never focused on, so I'm learning for the first time in the movie that Kirie's dad was the pottery maker who made all the Uzumaki plates that drove Saito's dad nuts. And I think that's true in both versions, but it's hard for me to confirm that in the anime because Kirie's dad has 0 screen time and is never focused on. Aside from fixing the major relationship moments between Kirie and Saito to make them believable, I will also say the film also had some major successes in some other places. Like, I'm going to go out on a limb and randomly praise Hinako Seiki for her role as Kyoko Sekino in this film. I hated this character in the manga. I hated this character in the anime. I thought she was a bitch and she got what she deserved, but I am pleasantly surprised that her depiction in the movie was bizarrely charming, not obnoxious at all. Like, it's a weird change to make to this character, but this is the only version of this character I've ever liked. And I was kind of bummed out in the movie when she inevitably gets cursed in the usual fashion and starves to death tied to a telephone pole. I think it's one of the absolutely most interesting changes the movie makes, so good job, movie. The other thing they changed is the way they handle Saito's dad's death, who, as we all know in all the versions of the story, kills himself by somehow twisting himself into a big spiral. Now, the movie handles this factoid with a fascinating amount of care and attention. While he technically dies the same way as the manga, in the film he dies by cramming himself in a washing machine, and I guess he breaks his back in there or he otherwise gets trapped inside there. It's a little vague, but that's how he dies. And what I do love about the movie is then the movie finesses this plot later and has Kirie later using the same laundry machine to do her clothes after he died. When, jump scare, in a classic film gotcha moment, she looks inside the washing machine to see the original manga accurate, mangled spiral body of Saito's dad, and I fucking love that. That was so cool because it subverted the manga, but then went back to it in a classic film horror way. But yeah, otherwise, the film is kind of a failure, but definitely less of a failure than the anime. Like, the big problem with the film is the film only covers the early volumes of the manga, and it's mostly focused on the story of Saito and his family. While Kirie is there and Kirie is the main character, she's basically a passive observer and narrator, not actively involved in the story. If I had to make a call, I think the film was really hoping that they'd raise enough hype and money to eventually get an Uzumaki 2 made that would wrap up the rest of the story, because the film totally just cliffhangers, and I would say that this film wanted to be called Uzumaki Part 1. Like, the film ends with Saito dying. He does die in about the same way he dies in the manga, but meanwhile, Kirie just runs off to have her next, like, girl in crisis adventure, and it ends with a vague sense that there's more problems to come and the story will continue. And so, yeah, that's Uzumaki the movie. It's not complete, but it's more competently made than the anime, and it definitely has a few charming moments that I can say make it stand out on its own accord. I think if you guys hated the anime and the way it ended, you might want to check out the movie and just do what I just did. Movie really kind of like takes the stink of the anime out of your mouth. All right, so that's it. I think this will be the last time I talk about Uzumaki, unless someone ponies up to remake it again someday. All right, see you in the future, where there might be another Uzumaki adaptation. I hope so. Or do I? I don't know. I just hope they don't fuck it up again. Don't fuck it up next time. Good night.